Alright, so it says find, we're going to skip it. No. So number 7 says find dy over dx and then simplify by factoring out least powers. Cool. Alright, so letter A is going to require you to do what? Right? So I have y is equal to x squared times 1 minus x squared to the 1/2, right? So now what rule do I need to use? Product rule, right? So I have dy over dx is equal to derivative of the first times the second. So I have 1 minus x squared to the 1/2 plus now x squared times the derivative of the second, which would be what? 1/2 1 minus x squared to the negative 1/2 times what? Negative 2x. Right. Okay, so try and clean this up if we can. So the first part, I really can't do anything. So I'm going to leave that as 2x times 1 minus x squared to the 1/2. And then the second part, I have 1 times 1/2 times negative 2. Negative 1, right? So that would be minus. And then you have x squared and x, so that's going to give you what? X cubed. And then you have 1 minus x squared to the negative 1/2. Okay, so now it says factor out using least powers. So what could I possibly factor out from those two terms?
1 minus x squared.
To the what?
To the 1/2.
I could factor out an x, and then 1 minus x squared to the not 1. So you have an exponent raised to the 1/2 and then the negative 1/2. So the lower one is right. Okay. So now what I have left over, I have 2 times. Now, if I were to multiply 1 minus x squared to the negative 1/2 by what to give me positive 1/2? Not 2. Right? How do you go from negative 1/2 to 1/2? What are you adding? 1. So your exponent for your 1 minus x squared is going to be 1. And then minus x squared minus x squared. So I have now x times 1 minus x squared to the negative 1/2. So you can simplify now the 2 times 1 minus x squared because it's only being raised to the first power. So that's going to give me 2 minus 2x squared minus x squared. And then you have x, 1 minus x squared to the negative 1/2 times now 2 minus 3x squared. Right? We could put the x on the top, 2 minus 3x squared, and then on the bottom is going to be what? So then you can have 2x minus 3x cubed. Possible. I'll be here. Yeah, so now all of YouTube knows where you guys live, so. They're just kidding. They don't really live there. It's a joke. Okay, so we got another product rule. So derivative of the first times the second plus the first derivative of the second, which would be what? It is negative. Okay. So that's negative. To the, if you subtract 1, that's going to be negative 4/3, right? Times derivative of the inside, which would be 2x. Alright, so you got x squared plus 4 to the 1/3, negative 1/3, sorry. Now you have 1 times negative 1/3 times 2. That's going to be what? Negative 2/3 x times x squared plus 4 to the negative 4/3. Okay, so what can I factor out? To the what? Negative 4/3. Yeah. All right, so what would you have to multiply x squared plus 4 to the negative 4/3 to get negative 1/3 as your exponent? Not negative 1. Positive 1, right? Because if you do positive 1, which is 3/3, and you multiply the two together, you're adding 3/3 here, which will give you that. So you want it to the first power. Right. Well, that's technically to the first power. So like when you distribute now, when you take this times this, you're going to add this exponent with the 1, and that's going to give you negative 1/3. Right, exactly. Yep. All right, so this is going to give me x squared minus 2/3 x plus 4 divided by cube root of x squared plus 4 to the 4th. We good? So you always just want to look for the smaller exponent. Yeah. Right. All right. So next one says suppose that the differentiable functions f and g and their derivatives have the following values. So if it's saying that it's differentiable, what else do you know? Evaluate the derivatives with respect to x at the following combinations at the given value of x. No, it just means you can find the derivative at those values. Okay, so I have 2 times f of 3x over 2 at x equals 2. So I need to figure out the derivative first. So again, work your outside in, right? So the outermost function is what? 2f, right? So the derivative of that would be 2f prime. Right? You're taking the derivative of f, so that's f prime. So you have 2 f prime. Right. Very unlikely, yeah. Right. But it's a function now. Derivative. Times the derivative of the inside part, which is over 2. F is a function, like an entire function. So like when you do like f in this case would be like the blob to the negative 1/2. Like that's what f is. So you take the derivative outside first, and then work your way in. All right. So if I simplify that, I get 3. That's the derivative of this part here. Say again. It's 3x over 2. It's like 3 halves, 3 over 2x. Yeah. Yep. So 2 times 3 halves gives you 3, right? So now they're asking us to evaluate it at x equals 2. So you have 3 f prime. 3 times 2 would give me 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So f prime of 3 is what? 2 pi. So you have 3 times 2 pi, which is 6 pi. Yeah. Yep. All right, f of x plus g of x is at x equals 3. So derivative of f is what? F prime of x. derivative of g prime of x. So I have f prime of 3 plus g prime of 3. And what would that be? F prime of 3 is 2 pi. G prime of 3 is 5. So 2 pi plus 5. Eight and 2? Where are you getting 8 and 2 from? Because it says evaluate the derivatives, not evaluate the function. All right, letter C, f of x times g of x. So this is going to require you to do the all right, so I have derivative of the first times the second plus the first derivative of the second. So I have f prime of 3 times g of 3 plus f of 3 times g prime of 3. So f prime of 3 we know is 2 pi, and g of 3 is what? Okay. Plus f of 3 I know is 3. And then g prime of 3 is 5. So I get negative 8 pi plus 15. All right, f of x over g of x at x equals 2. So this is going to require you to do what? Quotient. All right. Yep. So low d high. So you have g of x times f prime of x minus high d low all over low squared. So I have g of 2 times f prime of 2 minus f of 2 times g prime of 2 over g of 2 squared. So g of 2 is what? What is it? G of 2 is 2 times f prime of 2, which is 1/3, minus f of 2, which is 8, g prime of 2, negative 3. G of 2 is 2. So I have 2/3 plus 24 over 4. And yeah, I don't really feel like simplifying it. So. All right, f of g of x is going to require you to do what? Chain rule, right? So the outside function would be what? All right, so you got f prime of g of x times the derivative of the inside, which would be g of x, g prime of x. So I have f prime of g of 2 times g prime of 2. So g of 2 I know is what? So I have f prime of 2 times g prime of 2, which I know is negative 3. F prime of 2 is 1/3. So I have 1/3 times negative 3. Good. All right, so how would you rewrite that one? All right, so you have f of x to the 1/2. So its derivative would be 1/2 f of x to the times f prime of x. So what does that give me? That gives me 1/2 square root of f of x times f prime of x, right? So 1/2 square root of f of 2 times f prime of 2. So I know f of 2 is 8. 1/2 f of 8 times f prime of 2, which so my final answer would be 1/6. You could probably simplify that more, but I don't really feel like doing that. Say again? All right, 1/g squared of x. What would it if I were to rewrite that? You have g of x to the -2, right? So like g squared of x is the same thing as g of x squared. They are equivalent. All right, so I have derivative now would be -2 times g of x to the -3 times g prime of x. So what would that give me? That would give me -2 g prime of x over g of x cubed. What do we, 3 over, so g prime of 3 is what? -4? No, you're right, 5. So -2 times 5 over g of 3, I know is -4. So that's going to give me -10 over -64. Five over 32. I'll look down there. I don't know. Big Bang Theory? All right, is there any way that I can simplify that anymore? With my exponents here? Right. So if I take the 2 and I multiply it with the 1/2, that's going to give me f of x to the first power plus g of x first power. So your derivative would just be f prime of x plus g prime of x. Right? And we're doing it at 2. Did we already do that one? That's at 3. So you have f prime of 3 plus g prime of 3. 2, I mean, sorry. They have 1/3 plus -3. That's 1/3 minus All right, last one. So it says use the fact that f of x equals the absolute value of x, which is equal to the square root of x squared, and the chain rule to find the derivative of the absolute value of x. What values of x is f of x differentiable? What's the domain? Okay. So what I'm saying is that the square root of x is the same thing as the square root of x squared. So if you ever see a question that's asking you to find the derivative of absolute value, you can substitute that in with the square root of x squared. So you would have f of x would be x squared to the 1/2, like that, right? You could do that. Let's do the chain rule and then see if we get the same thing, right? So we think that it's going to come out to be x, right? So then the derivative of that would just be 1, right? So we're going to use this one, use the chain rule on this one to see what we get. So that's from up here. I just rewrote it with the exponent. So you have 1/2 times x squared to the negative 1/2 times 2x. So 1/2 of 2x would be just x, right? Over now the square roots of x squared, right? And what do you know the square root of x squared is? Absolute value. Right? Okay. All right, so it's technically not going to be the same. Yeah, but depending on what side of value of x you're taking it of, is going to depend on your answer. If you're taking it to the negative or the positive side. All right, so what's the only value that I can't find the derivative at? 0. Why not? Zero over 0, and then you also know absolute value of x has a what at x equals 0? Sharp turn. Right. So your domain for your f prime right, because you have a sharp turn. All right, so 3.6 will be due Monday, and we will quiz on 3.6.